I opened it and read the message on my son's phone. "Honey, today's the day we secure your mother's inheritance." And I felt a chill in my chest that went straight to my bones. I never thought I'd one day wish I hadn't had children. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd tell anyone. And if you, for just a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Carol Miller. I'm 68 years old, and I live in a small apartment in Queens, New York. It was a Sunday in February, one of those gray days where the rain hits the windows and the silence of the house becomes deafening. I was wearing my yellow floral apron, the same one I've used for 15 years to cook our family Sunday dinners. My hands, wrinkled by time and housework, held a cup of coffee that had already gone cold while I waited. I waited, just like always, like every Sunday for the last 8 years. My son Alex had come over with his wife, Monica, and my granddaughter, Sophie, for Sunday dinner. Well, really, they'd come over for me to cook, clean, and look after the little one while they rested on the couch watching television. The smell of pot roast still hung in the air, mixing with the aroma of the homemade apple pie I had made especially for Sophie. The apartment still had the same furniture I'd had for my entire life. The maroon velvet sofa I bought with my late husband, Tony, 30 years ago. The solid wood dining table where we'd celebrated so many Christmases, and the framed photographs that decorated every corner like little altars to a life that had been full. On the main wall hung our wedding photo, where Tony and I were smiling with the kind of innocence of people who believe love will protect them from everything. Alex had left his cell phone on the kitchen end table, right next to the porcelain sugar bowl I'd inherited from my mother. The device vibrated once, then again. A notification appeared on the locked screen with that bluish glow that signals an urgent message. I'm not one to snoop on other people's phones. I never have been. But something, maybe a mother's instinct, maybe the accumulated pain of so many silent slights, made me turn my head toward that blinking light. It was a message from Monica. The first few words were visible without unlocking the phone. "Honey, today's the day we secure your mother's inheritance. She's already signed everything." The world stopped. It felt as if someone had thrown open a window in the middle of winter, and all the cold in the universe had rushed into my kitchen. My fingers, which moments before had been firmly holding the cup, began to tremble uncontrollably. The coffee spilled onto my apron, creating a dark stain that spread like a sinister premonition. I approached the phone with hesitant steps, like someone nearing the edge of a cliff, knowing they're about to jump. With my heart pounding against my ribs, I tapped the screen. The full message unfolded before my eyes like a death sentence. "Honey, today's the day we secure your mother's inheritance. She's already signed everything. We just have to wait for her to fall asleep to take the documents. We can finally sell the apartment and the little house in the Poconos." Every word was a stab. Not only had they been planning to take what was mine, but they spoke of it with a casualness that made my stomach turn, as if I were a temporary obstacle, an annoyance to be patiently navigated until the right moment to act. My legs turned to jelly. I had to grab the edge of the table to keep from falling. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I thought I was going to faint right there, in my own kitchen, surrounded by the aroma of the food I had lovingly prepared for the people who were apparently just waiting for me to die. I managed to stumble my way to the bathroom. I locked the door and stood in front of the sink mirror. The woman staring back at me was a ghost of who I'd once been. Gray hair pulled into a messy bun, sunken eyes circled by purple shadows, and that look of defeat I had been cultivating for years without realizing it. The yellow floral apron, which that morning had seemed cheerful and fitting for a family gathering, now looked like a pathetic costume, like a servant's uniform in her own home. I began to cry silently, the kind of bitter tears only betrayed mothers know. Tears that fall without a sound, because you no longer even have the right to a dignified cry. I then remembered all the papers I had signed in recent weeks. Alex had come over with documents to make the process easier when the time comes. He had explained with that condescending smile he used when he thought I didn't understand important things. "It's just to avoid red tape, Mom. You just sign here and here, and we'll take care of the rest." I had signed. Like an idiot, I had signed without reading, trusting that my own son would never hurt me. I had signed while he stroked my hair and told me, "Don't worry, Mom. We'll always take care of you." Lies. It had all been lies wrapped in fake caresses and hollow promises. I left the bathroom after splashing cold water on my face, trying to erase the traces of my tears. In the living room, Alex and Monica were still on the couch. He had the TV remote in one hand and was distractedly stroking Sophie's hair with the other as she slept on his lap. The scene would have been tender under different circumstances. A loving father, a relaxed wife after a good meal, a little girl taking her Sunday nap. But now, knowing their true intentions, it all seemed like an obscene stage play. "Everything okay, Mom?" Alex asked without looking away from the sports program on the TV. "Yes, everything's perfect," I lied, as I collected the dirty dishes they had left scattered on the table. Monica then sat up, stretching like a cat after a nap. "Carol, I think we're going to get going. Alex has some work papers to review." "My papers," I thought. "The papers you stole from me." "Of course, dear. Take some apple pie for Sophie," I said with a smile that made my face ache. As I packed the dessert into a plastic container, Alex came over to get his phone. His fingers brushed the screen, and I saw his eyes automatically dart to Monica's message. A knowing smirk crossed his face. My own son, the baby I had carried for 9 months, for whom I had stayed up all night when he had a fever, whom I had defended from everyone and everything, was smiling at me after reading how he planned to rob me. They left without a proper goodbye. Sophie gave me a sleepy kiss on the cheek, and for a moment, I felt she was the only pure thing left in this whole nightmare. When the door closed, the silence in the apartment became suffocating. I stood there, in the entryway, surrounded by the echoes of a happiness that had been a lie. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in Tony's armchair, that worn leather one where he used to read the newspaper every morning, and let the memories wash over me like a bitter tide. I remembered when Alex was 8 and broke his arm falling off his bike. I was working nights cleaning offices to make ends meet, because Tony's salary as an electrician wasn't enough. But I missed a week of work to take care of him, losing money we desperately needed. It didn't matter. He was my son. I remembered when he turned 18 and wanted to study engineering but didn't get a full scholarship. Tony and I sold our car, that used Ford Taurus we'd bought after saving for 3 years. Alex never knew that for 6 months we walked everywhere or took the subway so he could get his college degree. I remembered when he married Monica. The wedding cost $20,000. We paid for $15,000 of it, taking out a loan we just finished paying off last year after Tony was already gone. Monica wanted a dignified celebration at the Plaza Hotel, so her family can see she isn't marrying just anyone, Alex had said. And I remembered when they bought their first house in the suburbs. They didn't have enough for the down payment. We gave them $25,000 we had been saving to renovate our own home. The leaks in my bedroom ceiling stayed there for another 5 years while they enjoyed their new marble countertops. Every memory was like a slap in the face, not because it had been a sacrifice. Parents sacrifice for their children, it's natural. But because I now understood that for Alex, every dollar we had given, every effort we had made, every time we had put his needs before our own, hadn't been love. It had been an investment he expected to collect on, with interest, when I was gone. I got up and went to the kitchen to make myself some chamomile tea. As I waited for the water to boil, my eyes fell on the refrigerator, covered in photos held up by magnets. Sophie on her first day of school, Sophie on her birthday, Sophie at the park. All the photos Monica had given me. "So you have something nice to look at." How generous, giving me the scraps of my own granddaughter, because that was another wound that was bleeding. Sophie, my 6-year-old granddaughter, who called me Nana in her sweet little voice and hugged me with the force of someone who still believes grandparents are eternal. How many times had I looked after her? How many afternoons had I picked her up from school because her parents had important things to do? How many nights had she slept over at my house because they wanted to go out alone? Monica always framed it as a favor she was doing for me. "Carol, do you mind watching Sophie? I know how much you love the company." Almost as if I were some lonely old woman desperate for attention, and not a grandmother being denied the right to see her granddaughter when she actually wanted to, because the visits were always on their terms. when they needed a free babysitter, when they wanted me to cook for their friends, when something broke in their house and they needed Tony, and after he died, a repairman I had to pay for, to go fix it. But when I needed them, that was different. Like when I had my gallbladder removed 2 years ago. I was in the hospital for 3 days. Alex came once for half an hour with Monica and Sophie. Monica spent the whole time on her phone, complaining that the hospital smelled bad. Alex asked how I was, but as I was answering, he was looking out the window as if he couldn't wait to leave. "Do you need anything, Mom?" he had asked. "Just for you to come see me tomorrow," I had said. Sure, we'll come by if we can." They didn't come. Not the next day, or the day after. When I was discharged, I had to take a taxi home alone, with my incision aching and a bag of medication I didn't know how to take. I got home to an empty refrigerator. I had to go downstairs to buy groceries, dragging my feet and stopping every few steps because everything hurt. That night, I called Alex to tell him how I was doing. "Oh, good, Mom. We're glad to hear it all went well. Hey, we're going to drop Sophie off for a bit tomorrow, okay? Monica has a hair appointment and I have an important meeting." And there I was the next day, still with stitches in my stomach, making a snack for my granddaughter and playing with her dolls on the floor while her parents went off to their appointments without a care in the world. The kettle started to whistle, pulling me from my bitter thoughts. I made my tea and went back to the living room, where photos of Tony looked at me from every corner. My husband had died 3 years ago from a sudden heart attack. A good, hard-working man who had worked himself to the bone to give us a decent life. When he died, Alex took care of all the arrangements. He was very efficient, my son. He handled the funeral, the insurance papers, contacting the bank. I was too lost in my grief to pay attention to the details. "Don't you worry about a thing, Mom. I've got it. You just need to sign here and here." I signed. Like an idiot, I signed everything he put in front of me. Tony's life insurance documents, bank papers, account transfers. "It's to simplify things," he would say, "so you don't have to deal with complicated bureaucracy at such a difficult time." I realized now that he had already started robbing me back then. While I was mourning the love of my life, my own son had seen a business opportunity. Tony's life insurance policy had been for $75,000, money that had supposedly gone into an account that Alex managed for me. Money I had never seen a penny of, though every time I asked about it, my son would reassure me that it was well invested and that I shouldn't worry. "Those things are complicated, Mom. Better if I handle it. I understand numbers." And I, like a fool, had nodded. Because sons always know more than their mothers, right? Because women of my generation don't understand banks or investments or important papers. Lies. All lies. I finished my tea while looking at my wedding photo. Tony and I, so young, so full of hope. We had thought that by raising our son with love, sacrifice, and values, we would have a good man. A man who would care for us in our old age as we had cared for him in his childhood. How stupid we had been. Because Alex had learned the lesson, but in reverse. He had learned that his parents would always be there, would always say yes, would always put his needs before their own. He had learned that he could take and take without giving anything in return. Because a parent's love has no limits. And Monica had come into our lives like a silent invader. At first, she feigned affection, calling me Mom Carol and bringing me flowers on my birthday. But slowly, she had put distance between Alex and us. "Your mother is getting too old to look after Sophie," she would tell him. "You need to set boundaries. It's not healthy for you to be so dependent on your parents." Dependent. As if we were the burden, when we were the ones who were always helping. The truth is, Monica had never been able to stand me. She came from a wealthy family, people from Scarsdale who looked down on a house cleaner from Queens. To her, I was the working-class mother-in-law who constantly reminded her that her husband hadn't been born into abundance. And now, after years of putting up with her snubs, her backhanded compliments disguised as advice, her subtle ways of making me feel like an outsider in my own son's life, I discovered it had all been a strategy, a way to isolate me so that when the time came to rob me, I would have no one to defend me. It was 3 in the morning when I finally managed to fall asleep in Tony's armchair. I dreamed of him. He was in our kitchen, young again, making me coffee like he did every morning before work. "Carol, my love," he said in the dream, "don't let them walk all over you. You're worth more than you think." I woke up at the first light of dawn, my neck stiff and a new certainty lodged in my chest like a splinter. I wasn't going to let this happen. I wasn't going to let them steal what Tony and I had built with so much effort. But first, I needed to know exactly what I had signed and what I could do to stop them. The next morning, the phone rang at 7:30. It was Monica, with that syrupy voice she used when she needed something. "Carol, good morning. Sorry to call so early, but our washing machine broke and I have to get to work. Could you do us a favor and wash a few urgent things? We'll bring the clothes over in a bag." A favor. It was always a favor. Never a job, never something they should pay me for or at least thank me for properly. "Of course," I replied automatically, as I had for years. "Oh, and one more thing. Since Alex has to take the car to the shop this afternoon, could you pick Sophie up from school? You know how much you love spending time with her." There was that phrase again. You know how much you love. As if my feelings were so simple. As if my love for my granddaughter was a convenience for them, and not the constant ache of a grandmother whose own blood was rationed out to her. I hung up the phone and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. An old woman, in a robe, whose day had just been planned for her without anyone asking if she had other plans. Because of course, what plans could a 68-year-old widow have? What life of her own could she aspire to have beyond serving her family? At 9, they arrived with 2 huge bags of dirty laundry. Alex didn't even get out of the car. Monica ran up, dropped the bags in my entryway, and left almost without a glance. "You have detergent, right? We forgot to buy some." "Oh, and be careful with Alex's white shirt. It's new and cost a fortune." A fortune. With my money, I thought. With the money they've been stealing from me. I spent the morning washing their clothes like a maid. As Alex's shirts tumbled in my washing machine, I remembered all the times they had turned me into their unpaid housekeeper. When they hosted dinner parties, and I had to arrive 3 hours early to cook. When they went on vacation and left me in charge of watering the plants and collecting the mail. When Monica bought new clothes and brought me the ones she no longer wore, as if she were doing me a huge favor. "Look, Carol, I brought you these blouses. They don't fit me anymore, but you might get some use out of them. Hand-me-downs from my own daughter-in-law." Rags she was discarding, presented as generosity. And I would accept them, smiling, because you shouldn't be wasteful, and because refusing would have created tension. At 2:30, I went to pick up Sophie. My granddaughter hugged me with that pure joy only children have, and for a moment, I forgot all the resentment. "Nana, are we going to your house? Will you make me meatballs?" "Of course, sweetheart. Your favorites." On the way home, Sophie told me about school. Her teacher said she was very smart. She had drawn a picture of our family where I was wearing an apron and a huge smile. "I drew you really happy, Nana, because you're always happy when you see me." If only she knew. If only she knew that every time I see her my heart aches, because I know our time is numbered, that her parents use my love for her as a tool of control. We got home, and while I made the meatballs, Sophie did her homework at the kitchen table. The girl chattered away, telling me about her friends, her games, her dream of being a veterinarian when she grew up. "Nana, did you always live here?" "Yes, sweetheart. I lived here with Grandpa Tony for many years, and this is where I raised your dad. And when I'm big, will I come visit you here too?" The question pierced me like a spear, because if her parents' plans worked out, by the time she was big, this apartment wouldn't be mine anymore. It would be theirs. And I would be in some cheap nursing home if I was lucky, or on the street if I wasn't. "Of course, my sweet girl. Always." I lied. I lied to my own granddaughter because I couldn't bear the thought of her knowing that her parents were destroying me. At 5, Monica arrived to pick her up. She walked in without knocking, as always, using the key I had given them for emergencies, which they now used as if my home were their own. "Everything okay? Was Sophie well behaved?" As if my granddaughter were a nuisance I had been forced to tolerate. "Perfect, as always." "Oh, Carol, I forgot to tell you. We can't come for dinner next weekend. We're eating at my parents' house. It's my mother's birthday, her mother's birthday." Information she delivered as if I were a nobody. as if I didn't deserve to be considered in family plans. Well, how about you come over Sunday night? I can make something light. No, better not. We'll probably be tired. Sophie looked at me with a sad face. But I want to see Nana on Sunday. You'll see her another day, sweetie, Monica said, with that feigned patience she used when she wanted to look good in front of me. They left, and I was left with a table full of meatball crumbs and a heart full of rage. Once again, I had been discarded like a second-rate plan. Once again, they had reminded me that in the family hierarchy, I was at the bottom. That night, as I washed the dishes, the phone rang again. It was Alex. Hi, Mom. Hey, I forgot to ask. Do you have the insurance papers for Dad's old car? I need them for something. More papers. He always needed more papers. For what? Bank stuff, Mom. Don't worry about it. But we sold your father's car years ago. Yeah, but there were some loose ends. Just find the papers and I'll swing by tomorrow to get them. He hung up without saying goodbye, as usual. I went to the bedroom and opened the closet where I kept all the important documents. There they were. The insurance for the Renault that Tony had bought in 2015, 2 years before he died. A car we had indeed sold, but from whose sale I had never seen a cent. For Dad's funeral expenses, Alex had told me then, and to pay off some debts he had. Lies. All lies. As I rummaged through the papers, a folder fell to the floor. It burst open, scattering documents everywhere. As I gathered them, one caught my eye. A deed for the little house in the Poconos that Tony had inherited from his parents. The little house where we had spent every summer of our marriage. Where Alex had learned to ride a bike. Where we had celebrated so many birthdays and family meals. A small house, but with a lot of land. In a town that had become popular with New Yorkers looking for second homes. The deed was in my name and Tony's. We were both 50-50 owners. But on the last page, there was a handwritten note in my script, signed and dated 3 months after Tony's death. I hereby cede my share of the Poconos property to my son, Alex Miller. I didn't remember writing that. I didn't remember making that decision. But there was my handwriting. There was my signature. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling, trying to remember. I had been so deep in depression after Tony died. Alex would come by every day with papers, explaining they were necessary formalities that we had to simplify the inheritance. Mom, you're not going to use the Poconos house anymore. It's too far. It'll be too much for you to maintain. It's better if it's in my name, and whenever you want to go, just let me know and we'll all go together. It had sounded reasonable at the time. It had sounded like my son was taking on a responsibility to relieve me, as if he were protecting me from the burden of maintaining a second home. But now I understood the truth. It wasn't protection. It was premeditated theft. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so much I had to hold the glass with both of them to bring it to my lips. My own house in the Poconos, the place where I had been happiest in my entire life. The Sunday barbecues under the grapevine, the afternoons reading on the porch, the summer nights counting stars with Tony, all gone, all stolen while I was mourning the death of the man I loved most. I went back to the bedroom and kept searching through the papers. I found more documents with my signature. A transfer of the AT&T stock Tony had bought. Another paper where I waived my share of a savings account I didn't remember existing. And finally, the most painful of all, an authorization for Alex to act on my behalf in all banking and estate matters. I had signed my own death warrant. I had placed in my son's hands the key to everything Tony and I had built over 40 years of marriage. I lay down on the bed, fully dressed, clutching Tony's pillow, which still held the faint scent of his cologne. I cried until I had no tears left, until exhaustion overcame the pain. But sometime during that endless night, listening to the sounds of the city that never sleeps, I made a decision. The next day, I would go talk to someone. A lawyer, a notary. Someone who could tell me if there was still anything I could do to get back what was mine. Because Tony hadn't worked himself to death for 40 years, just so our son could take everything while I ended my days as a servant in my own home. The next morning, I called the law firm Davis & Associates, which was near Grand Central. I had found their number in the yellow pages I'd kept for years. The receptionist gave me an appointment for that same afternoon. It's regarding an inheritance issue, I said. Certainly, ma'am. Mr. Javier Davis will see you at 5. I hung up the phone with sweaty palms. It was the first time in my life I was going to a lawyer without Alex present, without him accompanying me to help me understand the complicated stuff. I put on my best suit, the navy blue one I'd bought for my neighbor's daughter's wedding 2 years ago. I combed my hair carefully and put on the pearl earrings Tony had given me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look respectable, worthy of being heard. The office was in a modern building with marble floors and green plants in the corners. The lawyer, Mr. Davis, was a man in his 50s with a graying beard and glasses, who greeted me with genuine kindness. "Tell me, Mrs. Miller, how can I help you?" I explained the whole situation. I showed him the documents I had signed, told him about the message I had seen on Alex's phone, and spoke of all the years of manipulation and emotional abuse. The man listened without interrupting, taking notes in a leather-bound notebook. When I finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me with an expression that mixed professional sadness with personal outrage. "Mrs. Miller, what you're describing is more common than you might think. It's called elder financial abuse, and unfortunately, it's a form of mistreatment that many older people suffer." Mistreatment. The word hit me like a slap. I had thought of betrayal, of theft, of a lack of love, but I had never thought of it as mistreatment. Is there anything I can do? It depends. Some of these documents can be challenged if it can be proven they were signed under psychological duress or by taking advantage of an emotionally vulnerable state. The fact that it was so soon after your husband's death works in your favor. He explained that we would have to prove that Alex had taken advantage of my state of grief to make me sign documents I didn't fully understand. That he had acted in bad faith, hiding information and pressuring me psychologically. "How much would all this cost?" I asked, dreading the answer. "The initial retainer would be $2,500. If we win the case, that would be recovered from the opposing party. $2,500. A fortune for me, living on a widow's pension of $600 a month. But it was my only chance. "I'll do it," I said. I left the office with a strange feeling in my chest. For the first time in years, I had done something for myself, made a decision without consulting anyone. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. When I got home, Alex was already waiting for me at the door. He did not look happy. "Where were you, Mom? I've been ringing the bell for half an hour." "I was out," I answered curtly. "Where? You didn't tell me you were going anywhere." The question deeply irritated me, as if I had to ask his permission to leave my own house, as if I had to report my movements to him. "Running some errands." "What errands? Did you need something?" "You could have called me." I went into the apartment and he followed me. He sat on the sofa as if he owned the place, with that possessive attitude I had once mistaken for filial concern. "Did you find those insurance papers I asked for?" "I haven't looked for them yet." "What do you mean you haven't looked? I told you I needed them urgently." His reproachful tone infuriated me, as if I were his employee, as if I were obligated to jump every time he needed something. "Alex, I have other things to do besides look for papers for you." He looked at me, surprised. It was probably the first time in years I had spoken to him with such firmness. "What's wrong with you, Mom? You've been acting very strange lately." "Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just tired of you treating me like your personal secretary." "What are you talking about? I've never treated you badly." The casualness with which he said it left me speechless. He truly believed his behavior was normal. He truly thought that using his mother as a servant, stealing her assets, and treating her with constant condescension was filial love. "Alex, do you love me?" The question caught him off guard. "Of course I love you, Mom. You're my mother." "Then why do you need to steal from me?" He froze. The blood drained from his face as if he'd seen a ghost. "What are you talking about?" "I saw Monica's message on your phone. I know what you're planning." Absolute silence. For a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Alex looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger. Then he got up from the couch and started pacing the living room. "Mom, it's not what it looks like?" "Oh, it's not. Then what is it?" It's complicated. You don't understand how these things work." There it was again. Condescension disguised as protection. "Then explain it to me." Make me understand why my own son is planning to rob me. I'm not robbing you, he shouted, finally losing his composure. All of this is going to be yours anyway when you die. We're just getting the paperwork done early to avoid problems with the IRS. When I die? And what about in the meantime? Am I supposed to end up on the street? Don't be so dramatic, Mom. No one is going to kick you out of your home. This house isn't mine anymore, is it? You've already put it in your names. He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. Alex, I'm your mother. I've given you everything I had. I've sacrificed for you my entire life. How could you do this to me? He approached me with the same look he used to have as a child when he'd broken something important. Mom, you're not seeing it right. We're protecting you. If you leave everything in your name, when you get older and can't take care of yourself, social services will come and take everything to pay for a nursing home. This way, at least something stays in the family. It was incredible. He had managed to turn theft into an act of love. He had transformed his greed into motherly protection. And what if I don't want to go to a nursing home? Mom, be realistic. You're 68 years old. You can't live alone forever. Who says I can't? Look at yourself. You're already forgetting things. You can't handle everything. Last week you left the gas on. A lie. I had never left the gas on. But he needed me to believe I was incompetent. He needed me to accept his version of events where I was a senile old woman who needed to be looked after. Just then, Monica arrived. She came in using her key, as always. But this time, her presence was particularly grating. Hi, Carol. How are you? Ask your husband. He's explaining to me why you're robbing me. Monica looked at Alex in a panic. He gave her a slight nod. Carol, I think there's been a misunderstanding, Monica said in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to manipulate me. No one is robbing you of anything. We're just organizing things so that when the time comes, everything will be in order. What time? My death? Don't say that. We're talking about when you need more care. It's normal for children to take charge of these things. Take charge or take everything. But it's all still going to be yours, Alex interjected. It will just legally be in our name to protect it. Protect it from whom? From the government, from taxes, from potential scammers who prey on the elderly. It was fascinating to watch them work as a team. Each argument seemed reasonable on its own, but together they formed a perfectly woven web of manipulation. And what if I don't want you to protect anything? What if I want to remain the owner of my own things? They looked at each other as if I had said something completely irrational. Mom, Alex said in a paternalistic tone, you can't undo something that's already been done. The papers are signed, the transfers are registered. Trying to change everything now would be very complicated and very expensive. Very expensive for whom? For you, of course. Lawyers charge a fortune for these things. There it was, the veiled threat. They were telling me that fighting for my rights would cost more than I could afford. They were reminding me that I was an old woman, without resources, without legal knowledge, completely dependent on their generosity. But I was no longer the same woman I had been last week. I wasn't going to swallow their lies wrapped in gift paper anymore. Well, we'll see about that, I said. What do you mean, we'll see about that? Monica asked, her tone hardening. I mean, I've consulted a lawyer. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex turned so pale I thought he was going to faint. You've done what? I've spoken with a lawyer, and he explained to me that what you've done is called elder financial abuse, and that it's a crime. Mom, they're ripping you off, Alex yelled. Lawyers just want to take your money. Oh, so now you're concerned about my money. Monica stood up and walked toward the door. Let's go, Alex. Your mother needs some time to think things over calmly. Yes, I said. I need a lot of time to think. They left without saying goodbye. For the first time in years, I wasn't left with the feeling that I had done something wrong. On the contrary, I felt strangely light, as if a weight I had been carrying without realizing it had been lifted from my shoulders. For 3 days, the phone rang nonstop. Alex called every few hours with different excuses. He needed some documents he'd forgotten. Sophie was asking about me. Monica was worried about my mental state. I let it ring. For the first time in years, I was in no hurry to answer their calls. On the 4th day, he showed up at my door. When the bell rang and I saw him through the peephole, I didn't immediately open it as I always had. I stood there, watching him through the glass, seeing him grow impatient. He rang again, more insistently. Then he started knocking with his knuckles. "Mom, I know you're in there. I saw a light on in the window. Please open up." His voice sounded different. Less commanding, more pleading. I finally opened the door, but I didn't step aside to let him in as I always did. "What do you want, Alex? We need to talk. This can't go on like this." "What can't go on like this?" "This situation. These doubts they've put in your head." "Mom, we're family." I stood in the doorway, not inviting him in. He noticed and frowned. "Aren't you going to let me in?" "What for? I'm your son. Sons don't steal from their mothers." He sighed dramatically, as if dealing with a petulant child. "Mom, come with me to the notary's office. Let him explain the documents you signed. You'll see that everything is in order, that it's all to protect you." "No." The word came out on its own, clear and firm, a word I hadn't said to him in years. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not going to the notary with you. I'm not signing anything else. And I'm not going to keep pretending that what you've done is okay." His mouth fell open. He probably expected that after a few days of being angry, I would go back to being the same submissive mother. "Mom, that lawyer is filling your head with nonsense. He's lying to you to get your money. At least he's honest about what he wants. You've been stealing from me for years while making me believe you loved me." "Of course I love you." "No, Alex. You love my money. There's a difference." He pushed past me abruptly and entered the apartment without permission. He went straight to the living room and sat on the sofa as if nothing had happened. "Look, let's get things straight once and for all. Yes, it's true that some assets are already in my name, but that doesn't change anything for you. You still live here, I still take care of you." "Take care of me? When have you ever taken care of me?" "Always. Who handles your bank errands? Who takes the car to the shop? Who fixes things for you when they break?" It was unbelievable. He had turned his acts of control into acts of care. Because yes, he took my car to the shop, but then he'd give me inflated invoices and pocket the change. Yes, he handled the bank errands, but only to transfer my money to his accounts. Yes, he fixed things for me, but then he'd charge me as if he were a stranger. "Alex, since your father died, how many times have you come to see me just because you wanted to spend time with me? Without needing anything, without bringing papers to sign, without dropping off Sophie for me to watch." He paused, thinking. I could see him searching his memory for an instance and coming up empty. That's not the point. Of course it's the point. Because that's the difference between loving and using. "I'm not using you." "Oh no? Then what do you do every Sunday? And when you need a free babysitter? And when you want me to do your laundry? And when Monica needs someone to cook for her friends?" Each question was like a slap. I watched him grow more and more uncomfortable because he knew he had no answer. "Families help each other, Mom." "Yes, families help each other. But I've been helping you for years. When are you going to help me?" "I am helping you. I'm taking all the worries off your plate." "No, Alex. You're taking away my right to make my own decisions. You're treating me like I'm incompetent." He stood up from the sofa and started pacing the living room, increasingly agitated. "Mom, you don't understand how things are these days. The taxes, the bureaucracy, the banks. It's all very complicated. It's better if I handle it." "You know what the saddest part of all this is?" I said. "You actually believe you're doing me a favor." "I am." "No, Alex. You're doing yourself one." At that moment, my phone rang. It was Mr. Davis, the lawyer. "Mrs. Miller, I have good news. I've reviewed all the documentation, and there are several vulnerable points we can attack. Can you come in tomorrow at 10 to start preparing the lawsuit?" "Perfect. I'll be there." When I hung up, Alex was staring at me with an expression I had never seen on his face. Pure fear. "You're going to sue me? Your own son?" "I'm going to get back what's mine." "Mom, please. Think about this. If you do this, the whole family will find out. What will the cousins think? The neighbors? They'll say I'm a terrible son." There it was. His real concern wasn't about hurting me. It was about his own reputation. "Alex, you already are a terrible son. The lawsuit will just make it public." He collapsed onto the sofa. his head in his hands. "You can't do this to me. You did it to yourself. And what about Sophie? Have you thought about her? If you sue me, I'll never let you see her again." And there it was, the threat I had been waiting for, the final emotional blackmail. "You're going to use your own daughter to blackmail me?" "It's not blackmail. It's protecting her. I don't want my daughter growing up watching her grandmother tear the family apart." "The family is already torn apart, Alex. You tore it apart when you decided your mother was a golden goose." He stood up and walked to the door. "Fine. Do what you want. But when you end up all alone, with no one to care about you, don't come crying to me. I'm already alone, son. I've been alone for years." He left, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I stood in the living room, shaking, but not from fear, from liberation. I had said no. I had set a boundary. I had defended my rights. And I was still alive. That night I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. I didn't dream of Tony, or my childhood, or anything from the past. I just rested, as if my body had been waiting years for my mind to give it permission to relax. The next day, I woke up before my alarm. I took a slow shower, dressed with care, and made myself a full breakfast. Coffee, toast with avocado, and a glass of orange juice. It wasn't much, but for months, I had been breakfasting on just a cup of coffee while standing in the kitchen before rushing to meet someone else's needs. While I was eating, the phone rang. It was Monica. "Carol, it's me. Alex told me what happened yesterday. I think we should talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. There are things you don't know. Things Alex didn't explain well." "What things?" "It's better if we talk in person. Can I come up?" "I'm downstairs." I looked out the window. Sure enough, Monica's car was parked on the street. She had been watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. "You're not coming up to my apartment. Carol, please. I'm your granddaughter's mother, and I'm your daughter's grandmother. Has that ever made you treat me with respect? I know I might have seemed distant at times, but it's difficult. Alex has always been so attached to you, and I felt like I was in the way. Unbelievable." Now she was playing the victim. Now it turned out she was the one who had been excluded. "Monica, I've made a decision. I'm going to get back what's mine. If you want to have a relationship with me, fine. But it will be on my terms, not yours." "What terms?" "Respect, honesty, and for you to give back what you've stolen from me." "We haven't stolen anything." "Then we have nothing more to talk about." I hung up the phone and finished my breakfast in peace. At 9:30, I left for Mr. Davis's office. For the first time in years, I had an appointment I had made myself for a matter that concerned me, making a decision that no one had made for me. I walked through the streets of New York with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't exactly happiness because the pain was still there, but it was something like hope, the feeling that after years of being buried alive, I was finally starting to breathe. On the subway, an elderly woman offered me her seat. I thanked her and sat down, but not with the usual shame of being a burden. This time, I sat with the dignity of someone who knows they deserve respect simply for existing. Mr. Davis greeted me with a smile that made me feel important. "Mrs. Miller, I was studying your case all night. I believe we have a very strong chance of success. For the first time in years, someone was working for me instead of against me. What do you need me to do? To keep being brave, and to trust that justice exists, even if it's sometimes slow to arrive. Justice. A word I had started to believe didn't exist for people like me. The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday morning. Mr. Davis called me at 11 to confirm that everything was in order and that Alex would receive the court summons within the next 48 hours. "Brace yourself, Mrs. Miller," he warned. "When he gets those papers, the reaction is going to be intense. People who have been financially abusing family members don't usually give up easily." He wasn't wrong. On Thursday at 7 in the evening, as I was watching the news and sipping a cup of tea, there were violent bangs on my door. Not the usual polite knocks. These were furious, desperate pounds. "Open this door right now," Alex yelled from the hallway. "Open it or I'll break it down." I didn't move from the sofa. He kept shouting for 5 minutes. Then he stopped, but I knew he hadn't left because I could hear his ragged breathing on the other side of the door. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling with rage but trying to sound calm. "I know you're in there. I received a court summons. Do you know what this means? Do you know what you've done?" I walked to the door but didn't open it. "I know exactly what I've done. I've asked for what's mine to be returned." "It's not yours. It's not yours anymore. The papers are signed. The transfers are done. You can't change that now. The judge will decide that." "The judge!" He laughed, a bitter, harsh sound. "You think a judge is going to listen to you? You're an old woman who signed legal documents. No one forced you. No one threatened you. You signed of your own free will." His words hurt, but they didn't crush me like they would have a week ago. I could see clearly what was behind them now. Pure fear. "Alex, get away from my door or I'm calling the police." "Call them. Let's see what you tell them. That your son is securing his inheritance. They'll laugh in your face." But he left. I heard his angry footsteps stomping down the hall. The next day, Monica came. This time, she didn't shout. She rang the doorbell once and waited patiently. When I opened the door, I found her dressed in black, as if she were going to a funeral. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Carol, please. I need to talk to you. I already told you, we have nothing to talk about. It's about Sophie." Those 3 words pierced my chest like an arrow. Of course she was going to use my granddaughter. It was the only card she had left to play. What's wrong with Sophie? She's very confused. She doesn't understand why she can't come see you anymore. She cries every night asking what you did to Daddy. I didn't do anything to Daddy. Her daddy did this to himself. Carol, she's 6 years old. She doesn't understand documents or inheritances. She just knows she used to come see you and now she can't. And why can't she? Because Alex doesn't want to confuse her. He says until this is resolved, it's better for her to keep her distance. The manipulation was perfect. Alex had decided to use his own daughter as an emotional hostage, and Monica had come to deliver the message, wrapped in maternal concern. So, if I drop the lawsuit, I can see my granddaughter again. I didn't say that. You don't have to. Monica sighed and leaned against the doorframe. "Carol, do you know what will happen if you win? Have you thought about it? Alex will have to pay back all the money at once. He doesn't have it. He'll have to take out loans, mortgage his house, ruin himself. Is that what you want? To ruin your own son? My son is already ruined. Morally. And what about us? About Sophie? If Alex is ruined, so are we. Does your granddaughter deserve to pay for this too?" It was incredible how she had managed to turn the consequences of their own actions into my fault. As if I were responsible for the fact that Alex had stolen money he couldn't repay. "Monica, when you two decided to rob me, did you think about me? Did you ask yourselves what would happen to me when I was left with nothing? You weren't going to be left with nothing. You were going to keep living here. As what? As your housekeeper? As our mother? As part of the family. Mothers aren't property, Monica. And I'm no longer part of your family. I'm a resource you've been exploiting." Her eyes filled with tears. For a moment, I thought she was going to admit what they'd done, that she was going to offer a genuine apology. But no. "You just don't get it," she whispered. "Alex has been under so much stress lately. Our expenses have skyrocketed. Sophie needs tutors. The car has broken down twice. We needed the money. And there it was. The truth. There was no plan for protection, no concern for my well-being. They had simply seen my money as the solution to their financial problems. And it never occurred to you to just ask me for it? Ask you? Carol, you didn't have that much cash lying around. How would you know? Did you ever ask me how much money I had? Did we ever talk about my actual financial situation?" She fell silent because she knew the answer was no. They had never bothered to find out about my real situation because they didn't care. They only cared about what they could get from me. "Monica, leave. And tell Alex that if he wants to negotiate, he can have his lawyer call mine." "Negotiate what?" "The terms under which he will be returning my money." She left in tears, but I felt no pity for them. They were the tears of a thief who'd been caught, not of genuine remorse. The weekend was strangely quiet. For the first time in years, I had no Sunday visitors. I didn't cook for anyone. I didn't wash anyone else's dishes. I didn't look after my granddaughter while her parents rested. I stayed home reading the book I had started 3 times but had never been able to finish because I was always being interrupted. On Monday morning, the phone rang. It was a voice I didn't recognize. Mrs. Carol Miller? Yes, this is she. My name is Susan Clark from Adult Protective Services. I've received a concerning call about your situation. Could we schedule a visit? My blood ran cold. Alex had taken the next step in his strategy. He had called social services to report me as an elderly woman incapable of caring for herself. What kind of call? Your son has informed us that he is concerned about your mental state. He says you've been making irrational decisions, that you're being manipulated by third parties, and you're going to come evaluate my mental state just because my son asked you to. Ma'am, it's routine protocol. When we receive this type of report, we have to investigate. A report? My son filed a report against me? It's a preventive communication. We just want to make sure you're okay. I hung up the phone, trembling with rage. Alex had crossed every line. Not only had he stolen from me, not only had he humiliated me, but now he wanted to make me out to be crazy to justify what he had done. I immediately called Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, I just got a call from social services. My son has reported me as incompetent. That was to be expected, he replied calmly. It's a common tactic in these cases. They try to prove that you weren't in a condition to make rational decisions when you signed the documents. What can I do? Receive the social worker calmly. Show her that you are perfectly sane and that you know exactly what you're doing. In the meantime, I'm going to speed things up. I have a surprise in store for your son. What surprise? I've been investigating the bank accounts where your money ended up, and I've found some very interesting irregularities. The social worker arrived that afternoon. She was a young, serious woman carrying a folder full of forms. I offered her coffee and cookies, showed her the apartment, and explained my situation with clarity and precision. Mrs. Miller, she said after an hour of conversation, I see no signs of cognitive decline. Are you currently under any medical treatment? Do you take any medication that could affect your judgment? Just a pill for my blood pressure. Nothing more. And can you explain why you believe your son made this report? Because I filed a lawsuit against him to recover the money he stole from me, and he's trying to make me out to be crazy, so no one will believe me. The social worker took notes for a few minutes. Mrs. Miller, I'm going to close this file. There is no indication that you require guardianship or supervision, and I'm going to make a special note about the circumstances of this report. When she left, I sat in the kitchen and began to cry, but not from sadness, from rage. Pure rage against the man who had come from my own body, and who was now trying to destroy every last vestige of my dignity. That night, as I was eating dinner alone in front of the television, the phone rang again. It was Alex. Mom, we have to stop this. It's getting out of hand. It got out of hand when you decided to rob me. I didn't rob you, and even if I did, it's done. Don't you see this is destroying all of us? I don't care if it destroys you. You destroyed me first. Fine, he said, his voice turning cold as ice. You asked for it. I hope when you're all alone in some rundown nursing home, remembering you had a family that loved you, the money you get back will be worth it. Alex, I said with all the calm in the world, I'm already alone. The difference is, now I know it. I hung up the phone and then unplugged it from the wall. I didn't want to be bothered anymore. The next day, Mr. Davis summoned me to his office urgently. When I arrived, he had a smile I hadn't seen before. Mrs. Miller, I have very good news. We've found a way to recover all your money, and in the process, your son is going to have some serious problems with the IRS. What did you find? I asked, feeling my heart begin to race. Mr. Davis opened a thick folder and spread several documents across his desk. Your son made a very serious mistake. When he transferred the money from your accounts to his, he failed to declare those amounts as gifts to the IRS. Legally, he has committed tax evasion on over $50,000. Oh, what does that mean? It means that in addition to having to return your money, he's going to have to pay fines and back interest to the IRS. We could be talking about an additional $70,000. And the house in the Poconos? That case is even clearer. The transfer was made so soon after your husband's death that any judge will see he was taking advantage of your vulnerable state. That property will be returned to you, no question about it. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope running through my veins. How long will all this take? If your son cooperates and agrees to return everything voluntarily, we could resolve this in 2 weeks. If he fights it, well, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. I left the office walking with a different lightness in my step. After months of feeling like I was sinking in quicksand, I finally had solid ground beneath my feet. I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: walk aimlessly through New York. I headed toward Central Park and lost myself among its paths, watching the families strolling, the old men playing chess, the young people reading under the trees. I sat down at one of the outdoor cafes and had a coffee. It was a little luxury I hadn't allowed myself in a long time, because I'd always thought it was an unnecessary expense. But today, it wasn't an expense. It was a small, private celebration of my own recovered dignity. As I sipped my coffee, I watched an elderly couple at the next table. He was reading an article from the newspaper aloud to her while she listened, smiling. Every so often they would pause to comment on something, to laugh together, to share a piece of cake. I felt a pang of pain remembering Tony, but it wasn't the gut-wrenching pain of the first few months after his death. It was a sweet sadness, like the feeling you get when you remember a beautiful song you'll never hear again. Tony, I whispered to myself, I wish you could see this. I wish you could see that I'm finally learning to stand up for myself. Just then my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Miller? Yes, this is she. This is Isabel, Lucy's mother. You know, Sophie's classmate. My heart sped up. Had something happened to my granddaughter? Is everything all right? Yes, don't worry. It's just, well, Sophie has been very sad at school for the last few days. She says she can't see her grandmother. And since the girls are friends, Lucy asked me to call you. Lucy wanted you to call me? Yes. She told Sophie she could ask me to invite you over for a play date, so that she could call and talk to you. My eyes filled with tears. The innocence of children. Their natural ability to find solutions to adult problems. Is Sophie there? Yes, would you like to speak with her? Please. A few seconds later, I heard my granddaughter's voice, small and timid. Nana? Hi, my love. How are you? Sad. Daddy says you're mad at me. The miserable man had made a 6-year-old girl believe that her grandmother was angry with her. My love, listen to me very carefully. I am not mad at you. I could never be mad at you. I love you more than anything in the world. Then why can't I see you? Because Daddy and Mommy are upset with me about some grown-up stuff. But that has nothing to do with you. When can I see you again? Very soon, my love. I promise. When I hung up the phone, my determination was like steel in my chest. Alex had crossed the final line by using his daughter as a weapon against me. He had turned an innocent child into a victim of his dirty war. That same afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Davis. Mrs. Miller, your son's lawyer just called me. They want to negotiate. Negotiate what? A gradual return of your assets in exchange for dropping the IRS complaint. And what's your take? That they're desperate. The tax investigation is already underway. We can't stop it even if we wanted to. Your son is going to have to face the consequences of his actions whether he negotiates or not. Then there's nothing to negotiate. Exactly. Your money will be back in your accounts in the coming days, with or without his cooperation. That night, for the first time in weeks, I prepared a full dinner just for myself. Grilled fish, steamed vegetables, and a small glass of white wine I had been saving for a special occasion. I put on classical music, lit candles, and turned my humble kitchen into an elegant restaurant. As I ate, I thought of all the times I had prepared elaborate meals for Alex and Monica, who would barely touch them while they discussed work or stared at their phones. I thought of all the times I had eaten standing up in the kitchen after serving everyone else, contenting myself with the leftovers. Never again would I eat the crumbs of my own life. The next day, the first bank transfer arrived. $25,000 appeared in my account as if by magic. I called the bank to confirm it wasn't a mistake. No, Mrs. Miller. It's a court-ordered transfer. Part of a legal settlement. $25,000. An amount I had forgotten belonged to me. Enough money to live with dignity for years, to afford little luxuries, to not have to count every penny. That same afternoon, I went shopping. Not to Walmart or the dollar store where I'd been buying my clothes for the last few years. I went to Macy's and bought myself an elegant navy blue dress, a pair of comfortable but pretty shoes, and a coat that made me feel like a respectable lady. When I looked at myself in the fitting room mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. I was no longer the stooped, gray woman I had been seeing for months. I was someone who deserved respect, someone who had worth in her own right. On Friday, the doorbell rang at 5 in the afternoon. I looked through the peephole and saw Alex, but his appearance shocked me. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes. His hair was a mess. His clothes were wrinkled. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "Mom, please, open up. I just want to talk." This time I opened the door, but not out of weakness. I opened it because I wanted to see his face when he apologized. "What do you want, Alex?" "I want us to stop this. Please. They're going to foreclose on the house. Monica is a wreck. Sophie won't stop asking about you, and I don't know what to tell her." "You could start by telling her the truth." "What truth?" "That Daddy stole from Nana, and now he has to give the money back." He was silent for a very long moment. "Mom, if you drop the tax complaint, I'll give you everything back. Everything you want. You're already giving it back. I don't have to do a thing. Please, think of Sophie. If they take the house, she'll have to change schools, move." "Alex, when you decided to steal from me, did you think about Sophie? Did you think that if you left me with no money, her grandmother could end up on the street? You weren't going to end up on the street. We were always going to take care of you. Like you've been taking care of me until now, right?" He slumped against the hallway wall. "Mom, please. I know I made a mistake. I know things were done wrong. But we can fix this. We can be a family again." "No, Alex. We can't. Because to be a family, you have to respect each other. And you have never respected me." "Of course I respect you." "You respect me? When was the last time you asked me how I was? When was the last time you came to see me without needing something? When was the last time you treated me like a person instead of a resource?" He couldn't answer because we both knew the answer was never. "I can change," he whispered. "No, you can't. Because you don't believe you've done anything wrong. You still think you had a right to take what you wanted from me. It's just, you're my mother." "Exactly. I am your mother. Not your employee, not your personal bank, not your property. Your mother. And mothers deserve love, respect, and dignity." He stood there for a few more minutes, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But when he saw I wasn't going to give in, he turned and left without another word. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I realized something. It no longer hurt to see him suffer. For months, I had believed I was a bad mother for being angry with my son. But I wasn't a bad mother. I was a woman who had finally learned to value herself. The next day, Saturday, the doorbell rang in the morning. It was Isabel, Lucy's mother, with both little girls. "Mrs. Miller, I hope you don't mind. Sophie insisted so much on seeing you. I just had to bring her." My granddaughter ran to me and hugged me with all the strength in her small arms. "Nana, I've missed you so much. And I've missed you, my love. And I've missed you." We spent the afternoon together. I made her favorite meatballs. We played with her dolls. We watched an animated movie. For a few hours, my apartment was once again filled with the sound of a child's laughter. When Isabel came to pick her up, Sophie whispered in my ear, "Nana, are you not mad anymore?" "No, my love, I'm not mad anymore. I'm happy." And it was true. For the first time in a very long time, I was genuinely happy. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch of my little house in the Poconos, watching the sunset while I sip a glass of white wine. The view from here is spectacular. Fields stretching to the horizon, mountains silhouetted against the orange sky, and a silence that isn't loneliness, but peace. The house is officially mine again. The judge ruled that the transfer had been obtained through undue influence during a period of emotional vulnerability. Alex had to sign the deed back over with his own hands, in front of the notary, his face red with humiliation. I was there, sitting on the other side of the table, watching him sign each page with sharp, angry strokes. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression that mixed hatred with something that might have been respect, even if it came far too late. "There," he said as we left the notary's office. "Now you have everything you wanted from me." "What do you mean?" I mean, now you know who I really am. I'm not the helpless little old lady you thought I was. I'm a woman who knows how to fight for herself." He didn't answer. He just got in his car and drove off while I stood on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of the bundle of keys in my hand. The keys to my own house, my own life, my own freedom. The first night I spent here alone, after so many years, was magical. I had dinner on the porch under the stars, reading a book I had started and abandoned 3 times because of family interruptions. This time I finished it in one sitting, reading until 2 in the morning, because no one was waiting for me. No one needed me to cook for them. No one was in a hurry for me to go to bed. I've been coming here every weekend since. During the week I live in Queens, but on Friday afternoons I get in my car. Yes, I've started driving again after years of depending on Alex for everything. And I come to the Poconos. Here I have my books, my garden, my sunsets, and my silence. I have visitors, too. Sophie comes with me some weekends. At first, Monica made excuses, but when her lawyer explained that preventing contact between a grandmother and her granddaughter could lead to legal problems, she started cooperating. The first time I brought Sophie here after getting the house back, the little girl ran through every room as if exploring a lost territory. "Nana, this is where I learned to ride my bike. And this is where we played hide and seek. And this is where you used to have barbecues for the whole family." Each exclamation was a recovered memory, a piece of our history that Alex had tried to confiscate along with the property. That night, as I was tucking Sophie into the room that had been her father's when he was a boy, she asked me something that broke and rebuilt my heart at the same time. "Nana, why was Daddy so mean to you?" "Because sometimes people get confused, my love. Sometimes they think they deserve things that don't belong to them. And he's not going to get confused anymore?" "I don't know, sweetie, but it doesn't matter to me anymore. Because now I know how to take care of myself. I'll always take care of you, Nana. And I'll always take care of you. But not taking care of each other like we're obligations. Taking care of each other because we truly love one another." Alex and Monica lost their house. They couldn't handle the IRS penalties and had to sell it. Now they live in a smaller apartment on the outskirts of the city. Sophie told me that her dad is much more on edge than before, that he argues more with her mom, that sometimes he cries when he thinks no one is looking. I don't feel sorry for him. I suppose I should. He's my son, after all. But for months, I've been waiting to feel compassion for him, and it never comes. All I feel is a kind of cosmic justice. He's finally experiencing what it's like to be desperate, what it's like to need help and not have it, what it's like to feel vulnerable and helpless. Monica tried calling me a month ago. She sounded humble, even desperate. "Carol, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but Alex is doing really badly. He started drinking. He lost his job. Couldn't you help him? Just a small loan, until he gets back on his feet." "Monica, do you have children?" "Yes, I have Sophie. Would you do anything for her?" "Of course. Even steal from her when she's older and vulnerable? That's different." "No, it's not different. Alex saw me the way you see Sophie now, as someone you could exploit because you loved me. But love doesn't give you the right to steal." "Carol, please." "Monica, I already did my part as a mother. I raised Alex. I educated him. I gave him everything I could. Now he needs to learn how to be an adult. And that includes facing the consequences of his decisions." I hung up the phone and didn't feel bad about it. For decades, I had believed that being a good mother meant rescuing my son from all his problems. Now, I understand that being a good mother means teaching him that actions have consequences. This morning, I received a very special letter. It's from a woman named Marilyn, from Boston, who had read about my case in the newspaper. Apparently, a journalist had written an article about elder financial abuse and had mentioned my story as an example of someone who had successfully fought back. "Dear Mrs. Miller," Marilyn wrote, "I read your story and I feel like there's hope. My son and daughter-in-law have been managing my finances for years, and lately I suspect that not everything is right. I've lost so much confidence in myself that I don't even know if my suspicions are real or if I'm truly becoming senile like they tell me. Could you give me your lawyer's contact information?" I wrote back to her this very afternoon. I gave her Mr. Davis's phone number, but I also wrote something more. "Marilyn, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You are not too old to defend yourself. You are never too old to demand respect. Because that's the most important lesson I've learned these past few months. For years, I had internalized the idea that reaching a certain age meant becoming irrelevant, dependent, a burden on my family. I had accepted that my role was to serve without expecting anything in return, to be grateful for the crumbs of affection they gave me, and to keep quiet when they disrespected me. But that was a lie they had sold me since I was a little girl, when they taught me that women of my generation were supposed to sacrifice for others and feel lucky to do it. The truth is, getting older doesn't turn you into an object. It turns you into someone with experience, with wisdom, with the right to enjoy what you've built over a lifetime of work and sacrifice. Tony would be proud of me. I know it because sometimes, when I'm here on the porch watching the sunset, I feel his presence like a warm caress on my cheek. He always told me I was stronger than I thought. It took me 68 years to believe him, but I finally did. Tomorrow is my 69th birthday. I'm going to celebrate it here, in the Poconos, with Sophie. I promised her we would make a chocolate cake together and then go look at the stars from the yard. It's the first time in years that I'm looking forward to my birthday with excitement instead of resignation, because this year, it's not going to be a celebration where I cook for others and then clean up the dishes. It's going to be a celebration of me, of what I've accomplished, of what I've reclaimed. This afternoon, while I was tidying up some papers on the table, I found an old photo of Alex when he was Sophie's age, a smiling boy with bright eyes, hugging me on this very porch. For a moment, I felt a pang of pain thinking about how that little boy turned into the man who betrayed me. But then I looked out the window and saw Sophie playing in the yard, picking flowers to make a bouquet, and I understood something important. Cycles can be broken. Sophie doesn't have to repeat her father's mistakes. I can teach her that real love is one that respects, that cares without exploiting, that gives without expecting anything in return. When I leave this world, and that will be many years from now, because I've decided I still have a lot left to do, Sophie is going to remember a grandmother who fought back, who didn't let herself be walked all over, who fought for her dignity. She's going to remember that it's never too late to start valuing yourself. And maybe, if I'm lucky, when she's older and someone tries to take advantage of her, she'll remember my example and say, "No, my grandmother taught me I deserve respect." That would be the best inheritance I could possibly leave her. Not money, not property. The certainty that she is worthy, all by herself. The sun is beginning to set, and the sky is turning pink and orange. Sophie comes running with her bouquet of wildflowers. "Nana, look how pretty. They're for you." "Thank you, my love. Do you know why they're so beautiful?" "Why?" "Because they grew freely. No one cut them down too soon, no one trampled on them, no one told them they didn't have the right to grow." Sophie looks at me without fully understanding, but she nods as if she senses something important in my words. "Nana, are you free like the flowers too?" "Yes, my love. Now I am." And it's true. After decades of being someone else's garden, I've finally learned how to be my own flower. Now I ask you, have you ever experienced anything like what I've told you? Do you know someone who has gone through a similar situation? Share it in the comments. And if this story has touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Because maybe this message will reach someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to defend yourself, that it's never too late to demand the respect you deserve.